Hello again guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are back taking yet another look at the Aerosoft DHC-6 Twin Otter. Obviously recently we've had both a preview video and a full review up on the channel of the product. I very much enjoyed the Twin Otter during our preview flight and I'm still enjoying the aircraft now. However, we did find quite a few issues with the aircraft during the full review. It seems I wasn't the only one that was a little bit disappointed with the state in which the aircraft released. I've seen many comments from you guys as well. Fortunately though, Aerosoft have now released a patch for the aircraft which fixes up many of the issues that we saw during our full review. Just a few of the key features from the patch notes. We now have an added GPWS inhibit switch as well as added wing lights. Aerosoft have now also made the prudent decision to add an animated elevator and rudder trim control along with associated sounds. Speaking of sounds, one of the major issues that we had with the aircraft during our review flight was the engine sounds. I would say that there's still a little bit of work to be done there, but Aerosoft have reworked the engine sounds both internally and externally, as well as balancing the volumes a little bit better. The Autopilot also seems to have been fixed up. It can now hold altitude at lower speeds. According to the patch notes, it can now also accurately fly the glide slope, although I haven't tried that myself yet. The issue flying a radial outbound from a VOR has been fixed up, the CDI needle now working correctly, and the propeller and intake anti-ice now working on both engines. Finally, you may well notice that we do now have the props modelled into the feathered position. It's worth noting that the actual feathering function is not currently modelled on the aircraft, but at least now we do have the correct visual representation. That's just the highlights of the patch notes, but again you can see that Aerosoft have fixed up quite a few of the issues that we had with the aircraft. So with that in mind, I thought we'd take the DHC-6 on another flight just to give you a bit more of a feel for the improvements to the product. During my preview video of the aircraft we went on a bit of an Icelandic adventure departing out of Akureyri towards the west. I thought that flight was good fun, so we're going to do something similar again today. We're back in the Norland Air DHC-6. We're going to be departing once again out of Akureyri, but this time heading out towards the east, towards Bravo India Tango November, or Thorshofn. We'll be flying a visual departure from runway 19 out of Akureyri. We'll pick up the Alpha Kilo India VOR, obviously just to test out the HSI functionality. As I say, we'll head eastbound and then we'll make an approach most likely onto runway 19 in towards destination. Again, the aim of the flight is really just to showcase the aircraft in its patched condition, give you a feel for the reworked sounds. As always, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If you have any comments or questions for me, you can leave those down in the comment section below. We've already carried out most of our pre-flight preparation, so we'll head up to the cockpit and we should be more or less ready for the start. So welcome once again to the cockpit of the Aerosoft DHC-6 Twin Otter. Just to save ourselves a little bit of time, we've already run through the pre-flight checks. We are now ready for the engine start. So running through the start checks, the fuel levers are set off, prop levers are set to fully feathered, power levers are set to idle, the boost pumps can come on, and we'll be starting the right hand engine first so the starter can go to the right hand position. You can hear the engine spooling up there. We're just waiting till we're through 12% on the NG, which we now have. So we'll move the fuel lever for the right hand engine into the on position. Engine just continuing to spool up there. And it now looks to be stable, so we have a good start on the right. We'll start the left. And we have our 12%. So fuel lever on. And again we have a good start there on the left. Still slightly abrupt change in sound there once the start sequence is complete. Anyway, we'll come up on the prop levers. So just feeding those in slowly. We'll monitor the prop RPM as we come up. And we have two good starts. The prop RPM should settle just below 40%. So with both engines started, the engine driven generators can go on. I'm running through the Aft Start Checks, compass and gyros. Showing a heading there on the compass of around 225. And the same there on the left HSI. And on the right, caution lights, it's just the pneumatic low pressure. And altimeters are set. We have QNH 1009 both on the left and on the right we're reading the correct altitude. Radios and Autopilot will tune up the Alpha Kilo India VOR for our departure. That's a frequency of 113.6. And we have Alpha Kilo India visually identified there, showing 6.6 miles inbound towards the VOR. We'll be tracking inbound on a course of 026, so we'll set that on the HSI. And we'll be departing off runway 19, so we'll set that on the heading bug. And we have 190 set. In terms of altitude, we're going to be climbing up to 6,000 feet. That will keep us clear of all of the terrain on our routing today. Should put us above the cloud layer as well. We'll see how we go there. Signs are set. We have the seatbelts and the no smoking signs on. The park brake can come off. We'll make a sharp turn out to the right here just to clear the ground crew on our left and also clear the terminal building. So it's feeding in the power. The aircraft getting a little bit bogged down here in the turn. And clearing the terminal there off our wingtip. So coming to the holding point of runway 19, come onto the brakes. Park brake can go on. And running through our before takeoff checks. Trims are set. We do now have a working, or rather animated trim wheel there, which is good to see. Flaps will set to 10 degrees for the departure. And we have 10 degrees set. Flight instruments are checked. Radios are set. Prop levers are fully forward. Auto feather can come on. Although the props are now modelled in the feather position, there's still no auto feather or feather function on the aircraft. Nonetheless, we do have the select light illuminated. Engine instruments are checked. Bleed air can go on. And the de-ice, not required, but we'll take the pitot heat on there in preparation for the departure. So we are now set and ready to go. You can see the windsock is favouring runway 19, although there's a little bit of a crosswind out from the left. Anyway, we'll get ourselves lined up on runway 19 and in position. We'll carry out our line-up checks and then we'll be ready to go. Okay, so just running through our lineup checks, the flight controls are full and free, transponder is set, landing lights can come on, as can the strobe lights, caution panel is checked, runway heading is checked, we are set and ready to go, the park brake can come off, and we'll start feeding in the power. Again, we do have a slight crosswind out from the left, so we'll have to cater for that with the rudder. Overall, the engine sounds are definitely better, they're much quieter and there are smoother transitions between the various power settings. So feeding in a little bit of right rudder here to keep us straight. That wind wanting to pick up the left wing. Power is set, just coming through 64 knots, so coming back on the yoke. And as soon as we're up, that crosswind trying to push us out to the right, so we'll steer into that. We'll pitch the aircraft for a climb speed of 100 knots. We'll trim accordingly and we'll just maintain the configuration until we're up through 400 feet. It says 400, the flaps can come up. And up through 500 now, we'll start our turn out towards the north. Just make a visual turn. Come back to our climb power setting. So we're looking for 45 psi on the torque, 75% on the RPM. We'll come back to 40 psi initially. As we come back on the RPM, you'll see that the psi will start to increase once again. So just preempting that increase and avoiding the possibility of over-torquing the engines. So we have 75% on the props, just ever so slightly coming back on the power levers again. There's our 45%. Lovely clear day, more or less, so we're obviously visual with the terrain. And as I say, we'll be climbing up to 6,000 feet, that'll keep us clear of any terrain en route. We'll roll wings level on a heading of about 010, that should have us intercept the radial inbound towards Alpha Kilo India. Now we'll just set the heading bug. You can see the CDI bar is now working correctly, although obviously that was an issue tracking outbound, but you'll see in a moment's time that Aerosoft have fixed that up now, which is great of course. So looking good on the heading, we've got 6 miles to run inbound towards Alpha Kilo India. We'll run the after takeoff checks. The flaps are up, auto feather can come off. Climb power is set. Your damper is on. Signs we'll leave on for now. We'll leave the signs on until we're up at cruise altitude. And landing lights are off. The after takeoff checklist complete. So as I say, the engine sounds certainly seem to have been improved, which of course is a big bonus for the aircraft. They were definitely a little bit off before in terms of transitions, and also too loud. The CDI bar does seem to have been fixed up. We also now have a working trim wheel, so it's great to see that Aerosoft have had a little bit of a change of heart with the aircraft, and we are now seeing the PC version continue to be brought in line with what most of us would expect. Anyway, just coming up through 4,000 feet, so 2,000 feet to go here in the climb. The CDI bar just coming in. We'll zoom out slightly here as well on the GNS 530. We'll just maintain our present heading till we're on our radial inbound. And looks like we've managed to clear most of the cloud here in the climb as well. There's a little bit of a lump off to the right of the nose, so we'll just come through the gap straight off in front of us. And just coming up on those power levers again, just to maintain 45 psi on the torque. The torque falling off slightly there as we climb. That's one to go. Again, we're just going to ignore that radial momentarily as we come through the gap in the clouds. We're tracking outbound on the 079 radial, so we'll set that now in preparation for the fact that we're about to pass over the station. 089. And we have 079 set. I'm just getting ready to level out the aircraft. Looks like 6,000 feet is going to keep us just above the weather. And we'll start our turn now. Just coming over the station, so we'll be turning outbound onto our radial. We'll keep the power on just a tiny bit longer until we've come up to cruising speed. And we'll come back now to 40 psi on the torque. That's our cruise power setting. And again, visually clear of the train. The train does ease off later on as we approach destination. In fact, Thorshofn itself is pretty much on the water. So once again, we'll line up our heading bug. And we'll get the autopilot in, so the autopilot master can go on. We'll come into heading. And just getting the aircraft back down to 6,000 feet. So the autopilot seems to be doing what we want. The CDI bar just coming in there as well. As usual, we're going to head outside the aircraft. Obviously that's going to give you an opportunity to hear the new and improved external sounds as well. And I'll come back to you again, as per usual, once we're making our preparations and descent in towards destination.
Bureau 7, Sierra November, good morning. Good morning, Bureau 7, 96 Alpha, good morning.
Listen, NSO, kan kjøre på rullebanen, vær så god.
Morning, this is 70 Papa information, connecting the 10. Bureau 70 Papa, direct till only 77,000 feet, 121. Back at speed 200. And double Bureau 70 Papa, direct till only 77,000 feet, 121. Like this, 7,000 feet, 121 with the Papa. Videre 7, Sierra November, contact tower, 190 som får.
Og da får vi det er av noe.
Hold on, maybe like a kilo. Turning in down the road, level 120 with Quebec, speed 200. We're Saitek Kilo, direct till 7,000 feet, 131. 7,000 feet, 131, Icelandic, Saitek Kilo.
Press 04, 12.
Papa, riktigt push start, stay high.
Vestover egentlig hold øst av Alta 5. Og så...
So welcome back to the cockpit. It's been another enjoyable little hop in the DHC-6. We're approaching top of descent. We've got about 8 minutes to run inbound towards destination, so we'll get the aircraft descending. The MSA initially 5,200 feet. We are now within 25 miles off the airfield. So we'll set 5,200. We'll go for a descent rate of around 700 feet per minute in the descent. And initially we're just going to go down to MSA. Once we're visual with the field and below the cloud base here, we can descend down further. We'll be over the water for most of the approach if we're able to get in onto runway 19. Obviously there's not too much cloud around, but some of it's fairly low, so we'll just make sure that we're visual before we descend down below the MSA. Not quite sure what the wind's doing at Thorshofn at the moment. We'll have to try and see if we can't spot the windsock on the approach. If it's 50-50, then we'll take runway 19. That has us coming in over the water. We do have an NDB approach onto runway 19 as well if we need it, but obviously with the weather such as it is, we should be able to fly the visual approach very readily. Anyway, we'll carry out our descent checks. So the fuel quantities are checked. We've got about 600 pounds in each main tank there. Hydraulic pressure is checked. Caution lights are checked. DI systems not required for the time being. Altimeters are set. We have QNH 1008 on both altimeters there. And we'll run the approach checks now, so we'll get the signs on. And the landing lights can come on. That is the approach checklist complete. Keeping the power on for now, just building up the speed here in the descent. We're doing almost 160 knots now. We've got about 6 minutes to run inbound towards Bravo India Tango November. Ground speed's 176 knots. We do have a little bit of a tailwind there as well. And as I said, until we're well and truly visual with the ground, we'll maintain 5,200 feet. Once we're overhead the NDB, we can descend down to 3,000. We've got the NDB tuned up. Frequency is 373, and we are picking that up now on the ADF. Just coming up on 1 to go. And there's our altitude alerter. We'll keep the speed up all the way through the descent here. We're going to be tracking outbound back up towards the north anyway. So we'll have plenty of time to get the aircraft slowed down and configured. Just adjusting the power there to maintain 40 psi on the torque. Can't quite see the field, but you can see the bay just out to the north of the field. You can just make out the water. And we'll just adjust our heading now to track straight overhead the NDB. So we'll come right by about 5 degrees. I'm pretty happy that we're going to maintain visual in the descent now, so we'll come down to 3,000. Worst case scenario, we can work our way around the cloud that we do have. So just coming over the water, the airfield should be somewhere off tar 10 o'clock. And again, we'll continue in the descent here. We'll come down to 2,000. The lower we are, the easier we're going to be able to spot that windsock. So the NDB off on our left. Again, the cloud pretty determined here to get in between us and the airfield. There's the strip just down below us. So parallel runway heading. And then hopefully, as we fly past, we'll see the windsock. Nice clear gap in the weather here for us to make our approach. Unfortunately, with it being a little bit of a dull and grey day on the ground, it's going to be a little bit trickier to spot that windsock.
Identify cloud 1770 direct U2.
landing level 170 direct to 290 landing 34. Flying up on.
So I can't really make anything out from our present position, but again we know the wind was favouring runway 19 back at our departure aerodrome, so we'll aim to land runway 19 once again. Autopilot can come out. We'll start slowing the aircraft up on downwind. And we'll continue our descent as well. We'll just put a little bit more distance between us and the airfield, give us time to get slowed down and configured before the landing. Disregard the altitude warning, we're descending into the circuit now. And we'll start to turn back round towards final. We'll start taking some flap. We'll go flaps 20 initially. Again, quite tricky to spot the runway here with the current lighting conditions. Coming up on the power levers again, we want to maintain around 90 knots down final approach. And we'll keep configuring the aircraft. So we'll go flaps 30. Just about make out the runway. And we'll go flaps 40. 4 landing checks, flaps. Just waiting on the flaps to roll out there. So flaps are set, prop levers can come back to full RPM. So prop levers are set, and that's the landing checks complete. There's minimums, that's based on the NDB approach, obviously visual will continue. There is definitely still a power band on the aircraft where the sound changes are a little bit more abrupt. A little bit of a crosswind out from the left.
40, 30, 20, 10.
So chopping the power, again quite abrupt sound change there. There's touchdown. We've got plenty of runway, so we're not going to bother with the beta range. Actually disregard that, we will take the beta range just so you can hear the sound change. So let's come up to full beta, we'll let that slow the aircraft down. And cancelling that once again. And we're nice and slow now, so we can turn the aircraft around, we'll backtrack the runway. Flaps can come up. We'll just hold the rest of the aft landing checks until we've got the aircraft off the runway. So onto the brakes, getting the aircraft slowed down for the turn. Looks like we've got an aircraft parked up there on the right. Not entirely sure if we're going to have enough room to get parked up there ourselves. I think we should be okay. And actually we've got a marshaller there off the nose, so we'll manoeuvre ourselves into position, park ourselves in towards the ground handler. Just keeping a really good eye on the aircraft here, making sure that we're clear of any obstacles. Get the landing lights off, just to avoid blinding the ground crew.
Autopilot, vad var jag kring mot det?
And looks like we're all clear now of the obstacles. Just get ourselves straightened up. And the park brake can go on. So the aft lane checks, the flaps are up. Bleed air is off. De-ice is off. Just get that windshield heat off as well. Landing lights are off. Strobe lights are off. Transponder can come off. And the trims are set neutral. For the shutdown checks, the parking brake is set. Radios are set, power levers are at idle. Prop levers can come back to fully feathered. And the fuel levers can come off. Two good shutdowns, the boost pumps can come off. We'll get the anti-collision light off. And shortly we'll get the cabin door opened up. We'll offload our passengers here in Thorshofn. We'll be getting the aircraft turned around and then we'll make the short hop back towards Akureyri. So there you go guys, I hope you enjoyed another outing in the Aerosoft DHC-6. I think it's fair to say that the aircraft's release has been a little bit tumultuous. Most of us were probably expecting that the Twin Otter would arrive in a slightly more polished state. Nonetheless, credit where credit is due, Aerosoft do seem to have fixed up most of the major bugs that we saw with the aircraft during review. It does feel as though the aircraft was perhaps slightly rushed out, but I suppose as a developer you're always stuck between a rock and a hard place, with many users wanting aircraft released as soon as possible and other users wanting the aircraft to be fully complete before release. Of course, most of us don't like to see bugs on an aircraft, but personally I can tolerate them as long as they are fixed up in short order, and Aerosoft do seem to have done that for the most part here. There are still issues that could use some work. For example, I think the sounds could use a little bit of further refinement. And again, for me, I'd really like to see the ability to feather the props in flight. I think that's the last big box that needs ticking off. It seems there's been quite a lot of back and forth as to whether or not the aircraft's been hamstrung as a result of its future release onto the Xbox. Presumably Aerosoft have rolled back on that slightly, as initially they were saying things like the animated trim wheel weren't going to be possible, and thankfully we do now have that on the PC version of the aircraft at least. So as I say, a little bit of a ropey start for the Twin Otter, but it is great to see that Aerosoft have continued to work on the aircraft, and very quickly at that. Certainly the fixes that they've made have addressed most of the significant issues that I had with the product, and I really hope they keep it up. I hope they continue to develop the Twin Otter, as overall I know it's an aircraft that many of us want to enjoy in the sim. Anyway guys, once again thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving it a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please consider subscribing as well. As ever, a huge thank you to my channel members and patrons for all of your support. Very much appreciated. I hope that all of you are having a great day wherever you are. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.